And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met with U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and Secretary of State John Kerry today on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum summit in Davos. This amid renewed tensions between Jerusalem and Washington. Eli Hohenberg, diplomatic correspondent for the News Today, reports.
It was far from being an easy week for Israel's diplomacy, especially when it comes to its shaky relations with its best ally, the United States. But on Thursday, Israeli Premier Benjamin Netanyahu, currently taking part in the World Economic Forum in Davos, invested efforts in putting things back on the right track and sending messages of business as usual.
We can have our disagreements. We do. They're always publicized. They're very dramatic. But the alliance between the United States and Israel is so strong and so powerful that the only thing that's collapsed is the talk of the imminent American-Israeli collapse. It's very clear that's not going to happen and that this partnership is rock solid.
Earlier on Thursday, Netanyahu met both U.S. Vice President Joe Biden and Secretary of State John Kerry, meetings that were defined as friendly and cordial and held in a great atmosphere in the case of Biden, or regarding the sit-down with Kerry as very good and private. But not only Washington was on the agenda, but the complex situation in the Middle Eastern neighborhood.
What will happen in Syria? Can a unitary Syrian state be put together again? I doubt it. I wish it could happen, but I'm not sure you could put Humpty Dumpty back together again. I'd say the best result you might be able to get is a benign, sort of benign Balkanization.
Yet amidst regional calamities, Jerusalem is seeking to seize opportunities and strengthen its position. Netanyahu even suggested that the European Union and its policies towards Israel, which are becoming more aggressive with every passing day, take an example from the prevailing understanding policies Arab nations in the Middle East show towards Israel, their traditional enemy. Alongside politics and diplomacy, Netanyahu also discussed technology and innovation, with a special emphasis on cybersecurity, a field in which Israel is one of the leading global nations.
Yes, let's join in a voice from Davos in Switzerland to our conversation. Eitan Avriel, chief editor of The Marker magazine, is not on the phone with us now, but we will try to get back to him later. In the meantime, in the studio, Professor Emmanuel Navon is still with us, and diplomatic correspondent for the News Today, Eli Hohenberg. Good evening, Eli.
Good evening, Ayman.
Eli, Netanyahu, of course, met with Kerry today in Davos, and this follows a very rough week for U.S.-Israel relations.
Indeed, a very, very rough week, and Netanyahu or his office tried to show that everything is okay, business as usual, and everything is even more better than ever. And we see press releases which uses, many superlatives, such as a highly positive meeting, a very private one, not necessarily a usual thing. And because of this very delicate situation, it is important for Jerusalem to present as things are, again, on the right track, but putting band-aids on a deep wound is not a good solution, and probably the next crisis between Jerusalem and Washington is imminent and unavoidable.
Speaking of a deep wound, Professor Navon, just yesterday, Prime Minister Netanyahu said Israel is not what's wrong with the Middle East, it's what's right in the Middle East. Taking into consideration everything that he has to accomplish diplomatically in Davos, is he being too optimistic?
Well, there's definitely a lot of wrong things about the Middle East. As we know, it's definitely not the most stable region in the world. So I think on the one hand, he's right to remind the world that, the Middle East is the most messed up region in the world. And Israel is basically the only stable country in that region. But however, Israel is also in the middle of a 100-year conflict, which is still also unsolved. So that's also part of the story. In other words, both sides are true. Israel is indeed the only stable and strong country in this region, but it also has an unresolved conflict. And this, of course, he didn't mention because the Americans keep mentioning it. It looks like the current administration has mostly given up on trying to resolve this conflict, but it is there.
What is he likely to try to accomplish while in Davos, the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu?
Davos is really a meeting with all the bigwigs of the world, politicians, business leaders, etc. So, of course, any leader has to go there. And when he goes to Davos, generally he tries to present Israel and to market Israel as the startup nation, as a technology powerhouse, and in terms of the geopolitics of the Middle East, as he said, the only stable region of the country, which is true. But again, around him there are other politicians, other political leaders, the European Union, the United States, that keep reminding him there's also the issue of the conflict. As I said, we do not know exactly if the Obama administration, which still has 1 year to go, has given it up or not, but we see that the European Union is taking many initiatives on that issue.
Well, let's try now to again bring in Eitan Avriel, the chief editor. No, he's still not with us, unfortunately. We will try to get that Davos call again. Ellie, you have more highlights for us from Netanyahu's statements today.
Yes, well, when you have the Israeli prime minister on stage, no matter how flourishing the Israeli economy is, the talk goes back to diplomacy again. And he did mention a few very interesting things, where at the same week when implementation day of the Iranian nuclear deal took place, and Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif is also there, making his own victory lap. And Netanyahu said that, if I'm not mistaken, for the first time in a very sincere way, that he hopes that he's not wrong on the Iranian issue now that it is, underway and he has nothing to do about it. He says that he's, of course, still worried about the intentions of the Iranian regime, but he is hoping that he's wrong on this matter. We also have a deteriorating relationship between Jerusalem and Stockholm, and Netanyahu is sending, small wink to Sweden, saying that there are more Swedish people joining IS than Israeli Arabs, and to finish that issue, he also, of course, addresses the Palestinian conflict, saying once again that he's calling on Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas to meet to trigger the peace negotiations, and puts the blame on the Palestinian side.
Well, Professor Navon, taking into consideration everything Ellie just told us, this is an economic forum, but it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu did not steer clear of the explosive issues.
Right, it is an economic forum, but of course it is attended by political leaders, and the two are related, as we know, when it comes to Israel, for example. Indeed, the strongest economy in the Middle East, but also a country that has an unresolved conflict. And as I said before, the two are related. And even when the Israeli Prime Minister wants to emphasize Israel's economic strength, which are real, there is an international community, or at least there are international players that do have their own agenda when it comes to that conflict. And especially, we just spoke about Sweden. I mean, one of the reasons why many European countries are trying to be so proactive regarding this conflict is because they perceive it as having repercussions on their own internal politics. So this is also part of the story when it comes to the relationship between Israel and the European Union.
But I wouldn't necessarily call the Swedish foreign minister statement as proactive. It's just condemnations and
no, but blames. I was talking more about the sanctions or the labeling policy that the EU has been initiating lately. I mean, I agree with you that those declarations do not represent the European Union, but there have been steps taken by.
And they are far from being proactive.
Right.
It's not an initiative or anything.
Right.
Yes. Well, we were unable to get that call from Davos, but Professor Emmanuel Navon, thank you for being with us tonight.